Hey there, Friday Night Movie fans. This is another All-Star Comic-Con special. You're going to hear interviews from 3 amazing different characters. First, you're going to hear from Erik, the everyday Viking, and Kelly Montgomery, the producer of Vikings Con, and they are going to go deep on all things Vikings. Josh Crew, this interview is dedicated to you. Then you're going to hear from the amazing Jay, aka Jazmine Cosplay, a brilliant and wonderful, exquisite cosplayer who gives us all sorts of incredible insight into that world. And then you're going to hear from Jancel, the proprietor of Crowbar Gym, where we talk all sorts of things from fitness to action stars. So sit back and enjoy another All-Star Comic-Con special.
You want the whole name?
The whole name.
Okay.
The whole name.
My name is Erik Bryanson, the everyday Viking, Jarl of the Darkwater clan.
This is amazing. And we are here at All-Star Comic-Con at the Friday Night Movie booth with incredible experts in the world of Vikings. And I really have to turn this over to my sister, Lily, because she is the #1 fan of The Last Kingdom and has been talking about it nonstop. So Lily,
Last Kingdom,
take it away.
My newfound love of Vikings is that's really what it is. It's new.
I'm your newfound love?
Yes.
Thank you.
You are my now favorite Viking. But my dad suggested I watch the show. I really know nothing about it. My husband did like a DNA sort of like test to see where he came from, and he was like 12% Viking. And I was like, that's interesting. I know nothing about that culture. And that piqued my curiosity though. And then my dad was like, you gotta watch this show, The Last Kingdom. And he's like, it's very historical. And I'm like, I don't know. And I was fascinated. Like super fascinated by their culture. I find myself saying, I swear to the gods, like currently, like I feel like, I'm like,
Which is hilarious because we are quite monotheistic Jews in our family.
Yes,
but.
we're definitely not Viking. And you know, and they always, like you had explained to me that it's more of an Anglo-Saxon, Saxon, right?
Right,
point of view on the show. But I definitely feel like they make the Vikings look way better than all the other people. And
Right.
You know, in that time, I would say maybe the Christians. And so it is really interesting because I find myself super fascinated by the culture and the story. And plus the acting's great, the writing's great. So yeah, I don't know. I asked you if you could rate which are the best Viking shows on TV. There's so many now.
Right.
And what is the best one? And you had said?
The Last Kingdom.
Yes.
So,
I feel like I win.
So sell me on The Last Kingdom, because I have to say Lily's pitch to me was, if you need your fix for more Game of Thrones, watch The Last Kingdom. And I don't need more Game of Thrones. It's over. I'm glad it's over.
Well, I said if you like Game of Thrones and you like Outlander, this is sort of like the two worlds meet, because there is a cool sort of romantic kind of storyline throughout. There's like really strong female characters. So there's like a bit of both.
So why should I watch The Last Kingdom? What makes it great as a Viking expert?
There's a lot of killing and a lot of sex.
Yeah. No. That's really true though. There's way more
there's
action in
someone
Last
like-
Kingdom than Game of Thrones.
For someone like you
sure.
who really understands it, there's got to. What hooks you in?
Well, again, like she mentioned earlier, and like I told her, it's more of a story told from the point of view of an Anglo-Saxon. However, it's about someone who was born an Anglo-Saxon, adopted into a Norse culture, raised in a Norse culture, and then because his adoptive father was murdered, he's trying to avenge both his adoptive father and reclaim his family lineage of Anglo-Saxon royalty. So
he's literally stuck between the two worlds.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And
This
he
is
identifies
very
as
cool.
both.
And because he does not agree with the Christian viewpoints of stuff, he's an outsider but still an insider. So the Anglo-Saxons use him for his abilities to understand the Norse, and he really doesn't want to be a part of the Christian world. He just wants his own little area back so that he can be on his own and have a family and kids.
Is it historically accurate? Is it based on a particular character?
I think so.
Somewhat, yes, because the king Aelfred that he helps,
he exists.
He's an historical character. The Danes that they're mentioning are historical characters, and the other Norse that they're mentioning in the show are other historical characters. Whether or not Aelfred, Ulfred, son of Uhtred, actually existed, I don't know.
I heard that I read that there's they met several people or warriors with that name existed, and they kind of
it's like an
amalgamation.
Yeah,
but the king of England at that time, well, of Wessex, it's not really England the way it is today. That person is a historical figure.
Yeah.
And the Danes are historical figures.
And this is also before England was united. So they're mentioning all the different sub-kingdoms inside UK, like Mercia and all the other ones.
Winchester.
Yeah.
And they always tell you the original name and then the current name.
All right, see?
You're a history buff. You'll like it.
You could have sold it to me this way instead of the two shows that I'm like 1.5 times interested in.
Well, you need another guy to tell you that.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's possible.
Well, my best friend Josh, who will absolutely hear this episode, he couldn't convince me either. So you, sir, the everyday Viking, has done it. Okay. We've talked about your favorite Viking. Which Viking representation? And I'm even including wrestlers that dress like Vikings. Like even now, I don't know if you follow wrestling, but they're the Viking Raiders are a new WWF team.
But maybe is that
WWE team?
disparaging to the Viking community?
So I'm going to ask, what is your least favorite Viking?
They were Raiders.
representation? My least favorite representation is basically Americans' version of Vikings, to where all they basically did was rape, pillage, burn, and take what they want, when they actually offered a lot more to culture than what people actually believe and understand. But even worse than that, I'd have to say, from the heart, and Kelly knows, white supremacist.
Really?
They're my worst, because they are taking an idea and totally twisting it to what a lie they're believing, because the Norse culture were actually very, very diverse and accepting of other people.
Wow.
You found Moorish influence.
You see that in Last Kingdom.
They found Arabic writing in the Norse culture, and they also found Norse writing in Turkey. Graffiti on one of the temples.
Incredible.
And they actually had interaction with North Africa, everything in the Mediterranean, so they actually did a lot more. And that's one of the reasons why I hooked up with Kelly, because not only is she the owner of Vikings Con, but she's also an African-American woman. And together with us, we're portraying a better version and more educational about the diversity of medieval times.
Well, how did you get into Viking culture?
So I've always been fascinated with the Viking culture, the Viking shows, and just medieval history. And I started off doing conventions for other cultures, like the Spartans. So when Vikings came on, I thought, let me do a convention based on Vikings. But I was kind of apprehensive just because of the white supremacists. But I do have to say, I haven't experienced any of that.
So good.
People have been very open, and when they find out that I am of color and that I'm doing this, they're more open and they help me spread the word. And Erik has been so knowledgeable, and he's just been awesome throughout this whole thing.
What a great duo.
Yeah.
A great team.
Yeah, that's a great.
He makes me feel comfortable coming out, and just doing these events and meeting people of color. They tell me all the time that now they've always liked the history and the culture. Now they feel comfortable. They find an event that they can actually be a part of.
That's incredible. One thing I love about Comic-Cons is how diverse, how accepting,
and inclusive.
And inclusive, exactly. And when you talk about inclusive, it is not just inclusive in terms of your color of your skin. It's inclusive in terms of your orientation, your hobbies, your whatever your stuff you're dealing with. I feel like at these Comic-Cons, especially All-Star, which is like a family, everybody is accepted. and everybody can kind of let their personal flag fly.
Exactly.
As long as it's one that has space for everybody else, right? Like,
Yep.
you don't have to agree with everybody else, but you got to have
Right.
space for other people. So being a con organizer, right?
Yeah.
Give us a little insight. What are some of the little tidbits you've picked up about All-Star that you find very good as a con organizer? Where you're like, oh, that's some pro stuff happening here.
Yeah, I really like the way the organizers of All-Star are at the front of their conventions. You see them, they're opening up the events, they're talking to people, they're participating in a lot of the programs. For me, I kind of try to be a little bit more behind the scenes, but this is getting me to understand that they want to see the face behind it, like who is making, all their dreams come true, who are helping them to like meet friends from across the world who share the same genre.
Absolutely. I got to say, when you go to a bigger con and you're kind of like, what mysterious corporation is running
Yes,
this?
Right.
Yes.
And then
What's the motivation?
Yeah, what's the motivation?
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
It's the Umbrella Corp.
exactly.
Yeah, that is what I like about All-Star Comic-Con. It's very like a con family, and they have that feel, and they want to keep that feel.
And Mike and Kevin, absolutely. I mean,
Oh,
that's
yeah,
it. That's why I
yeah.
signed up when I came last year just as a guest. Loved it. Had so much fun. And then the moment they put out the word that they were accepting vendor applications, I was like, we're doing this,
Yeah,
family. And
yeah.
I got the table before I even asked the family. So I know how you feel. Being part of the community is
We
amazing.
opened the con last year. They actually blew the
the
Viking
sounding
horn,
horn.
That
and
is
it's so
amazing.
loud. It
That's-
was great.
That's amazing. All right, so let's talk bigger picture pop culture. You can't only like Vikings. I'm sure you love other stuff.
Oh yeah, look at this.
Well, let's see. This
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones, Targaryen.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Walking
All
Dead.
right.
What else do you guys like?
I like the Sami, the Finns, they're okay. The Slavs and the Rus, they're all okay too, but Dane all the way.
What, all right, so are there other comic fandoms that are here represented that you're like, oh, I'm going to check out that. I'm going to hit up the 501st and hang out with the Star Wars guys? Or
Yeah, we saw them. We see them at a
Yeah.
couple of conventions, and we always chat with them. Yeah.
What about you, sir?
Yeah, I actually got my picture with my Imperial shield, my Imperial Viking shield with the 501st.
Oh, that's
I actually got
amazing.
one with Darth Vader, in my full attire.
That's
I mean,
incredible.
I'm a big Star Wars geek. I grew up on it. I also read comics as a kid, and I may not be up on some of this anime stuff and the newer stuff, but I still appreciate it.
Yeah.
Because it's nostalgic no matter what, and it brings, like, it's a family, I mean, I could not know you, but here we're sitting together, like, I got somebody from, like, Naruto sitting next to someone in Viking, and we're just drinking, talking, and having a good time.
That's
And you know
amazing.
what? It's a mashup too, because when I started off doing conventions, but then when I met Erik and a couple of other reenactors, there's cosplay and then there's reenactors. So there was always
Right,
that battle between,
exactly.
oh, we want that authenticity of, the Viking culture, but then you have the comic book side, with Thor. So just seeing that mashup and bringing those two worlds together is awesome.
So I'm going to reference a film. I hope you have time, right? Because we're having so much fun doing this. We're definitely way over what we normally do for these segments. A film that I really love, and when you were talking about the mixing of cultures, I was actually wondering if this was also a Norse thing. Do you remember this film called The 13th Warrior?
Yes.
Antonio Banderas,
Antonio
right?
Banderas.
Yeah.
Who seems like an odd choice
I kinda
for
like that
Well,
movie.
it actually wasn't.
Okay, but
Yeah,
okay.
because the guy was Flair.
Because here's the background
Right,
story.
exactly.
So tell us.
Okay.
So if you can, I love that
Yeah.
movie, and I would love your take on the real
Sure.
history of a movie.
Okay,
like that.
first off, it was a novel based on a novel, Eaters of the Dead, written by Michael Crichton, I think.
Crichton, right? Michael Crichton.
Okay.
Yeah. With Jurassic Park and
Yeah. So they turned it
Million
into a movie and they changed it to the 13th Warrior. Okay. Everything that you see in the movie is based on writings that we have from an Arabic or Persian ambassador that was involved with the Norsemen. Most of our references that we get of the Norse culture is actually from the Arabic Empire at the time, or the Persian Empire.
That's incredible.
because they were the ones that were actually writing things down and keeping actually notes and documenting stuff. So most of that movie is actually based on historical documents that they found in Arabic or Islamic writings. Because at the time of the Norse culture, when the movie was supposed to be portraying, the Norsemen and the Islamic culture were actually very good friends, because militarily they both matched each other. Then they realized that instead of let's fighting each other, let's become traders. So they would actually establish trading posts in each of the countries, or each of the countries that the Islamic Empire occupied and the Norse culture occupied. So they actually were very good friends and socially exchanged stuff. And so him being outcasted from the Islamic culture was a common practice back then, and as punishment being sent up to the Norsemen.
Oh,
Now,
wow.
whether the mystical side, that the vulva, which is actually the witch that they call in the movie, is actually true, may be possible, may not be possible, because she says that the 13th warrior cannot be a Norse man. So the only way to equate it to an American understanding is the King Arthur legend.
Ah, okay.
You know, and there's actually a bunch of sagas that are actually written in Norse mythology that actually tell stories like this of interactions with other cultures and like different journeys and different stuff. And some of the, and I may go out on a limb, but there's even one saga that, if you read it, shows similarities to Star Wars.
Ah, I wouldn't put it past that.
You know,
Lucas
and then,
loved that historical stuff.
And then Beowulf.
Right,
You know, and then
You know, Valhalla, that was a good movie as well.
And then anything written by Tolkien. You know, and even now the guy, I'm terrible with names, but the guy from Game of Thrones,
George R. R. Martin,
he's even admitting that he was influenced by Nordic and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, you can see it in
And even video games, Skyrim, Elder Scrolls, you know, you got all this stuff to where the Norse culture is being subtle in the background and becoming a major role, but you're not looking at it like that.
That's so cool. Well, Erik, the Everyday Viking, Kelly, the producer of Vikings Con, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for enriching our audience with all of this incredibly important information, and we hope folks check out Vikings Con.
And for legitimizing my obsession with the Last Kingdom and my possible like going down the rabbit hole of Viking culture.
So one of the most important things that we have in Friday Night Movie is called an I Told You show, and that's when you tell someone to watch a show and they like it, you have to declare them a genius in front of everybody on the show.
See on our backdrop, there's a trophy.
There it is. So I will now watch this show.
Is the reigning champion.
And if it truly becomes a show that I love, you, sir, will get the I Told You show.
Actually, wouldn't it be your sister?
I feel like I should get it by proxy.
You get how the show works.
I never get them, too. Like,
Thank you so much for being here.
No problem. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, guys.
Lily.
Hi, Lily. I'm Jay.
I explained
The costume.
Thank you so much.
Now, is that technically a costume or is it a cosplay? Like, do we? I don't.
A costume. You cosplay with a costume.
Got it.
So it's a little bit of both.
Okay, but so when you compliment someone's cosplay, you're complimenting the whole thing that they've put together, not just the costume, which is the thing they're wearing.
Correct. The costume, like you could say that the suit is the costume, but the hair and the makeup and the attitude is the cosplay.
Right. I guess it's also the being in character.
Yes, and I even though I tried to make sure that my characters are very specific to the character I'm duplicating. If you look at my card, I've got a classic Elastigirl, and on the back, I've got a Zero Suit Samus, which I work very hard to be like perfectly matched to the character, but I don't like run around calling myself Samus, and I don't call myself Helen, you know. But I do, pose and try to, the best thing is when kids come up to you and they just want to get a picture with you because they just love the character.
And they might think you're real too.
And they might think you're
That's
real.
amazing.
Which is
Well,
super fun.
so here we are. We're mid-conversation. We're at the Friday Night Movie exhibit with Jay, also known as Jazmine Cosplays.
That's right.
And who you can check out on Instagram at Jazrae 22.
That's right.
And
Following right now as we speak.
Following right now as we speak. And Jay is here is in an incredible, a gorgeous Jean Grey 90s era costume with the headband and the flowing red hair. Honestly, that is my era of X-Men that I loved most. I loved that particular Jean Grey. I loved she was the leader, I think, of the Blue Squad that had her and Storm.
Right.
And so let's just start talking X-Men and Jean Grey.
All right.
Why do you attach yourselves to the 90s X-Men and specifically Jean from that era?
I get to the 90s X-Men because that was when I really started following the X-Men. I came in through it through Excalibur, so Captain Britain and Nightcrawler and not Dark Phoenix, but Rachel Summers, Phoenix #2. So I kind of backed into the regular X-Men. It was right about the time that they split into the blue and gold teams, X-Men and Uncanny X-Men. So I was getting all, and then of course
when I was a kid, Lily,
Generation X came out at that time. So there's like a whole new generation of X-Men that they were like finally moving away, creating new characters, and I have my own superhero characters that I created with role-playing games, and I write stories about them, and I have my own setting. So I really got into the characters, and it's because it was like a big soap opera, but with superpowers.
That's true. That particular era of X-Men, there was a lot of love and relationships, and Cyclops, he was with Jean Grey, but he was always off being tempted by Psylocke, right? That was I remember that
and
theme.
Of course, Wolverine was with Jean for a little while, and that was the time that Scott and Jean finally got married. The big wedding issue.
A real Jean, not a clone.
Not Madeline, exactly. Which again, it's just twisted. And it was also the time that Magneto came back and pulled all the adamantium out of Wolverine.
Oh, right.
And I remember that was the first time that a comic book actually made me gasp out loud when I turned the page.
How old were you, more or less?
Well, right now I'm 44.
Well, I don't mean now. I mean when in that moment.
I was 17 or 18 years old.
I mean, that's pretty cool.
It was.
That like comics, because it's not. I think maybe people. I mean, maybe not at this Comic-Con, but think like, well, it's for like teenagers, 12-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 13-year-olds. But I mean, obviously into adulthood, but at like 18, 17, 18, where a comic can make you like gasp like a novel would.
Exactly.
And
awesome. And that's the thing is that there's no age limit on what you're passionate about. If you enjoy going skiing, then you should always ski. If you enjoy fishing, you should always fish. So why do we have to give up comic books? Why do we have to give up video games? Why do we have to give up role-playing games? If we love it and it gives it relieves our stress and whatever, we should always be allowed to do it.
So that's actually one of the mottos of what we've created here, because my avatar is Pancake for the Table, and the whole concept of Pancake for the Table is, so you might not be able to eat a whole stack of pancakes every time you go to a diner anymore, but then at least get a pancake for the table so you can keep connecting to that pancake and then share it a little bit.
I like that.
And so that is the
it's basically like your philosophy of life.
Yeah, exactly. This is my philosophy of life. Pancake for the table.
I like to say, you ever know when you're like eating a box of cookies and you're not really paying attention, and then you reach in and there's no more cookies left, and you didn't get that last cookie enjoyment, right? Well, I say eat every cookie as if it were the last cookie.
That is a great.
That's a really great philosophy.
That's not mine. That's from Rick Reynolds. But
okay,
still.
I love that we're getting deep here. All right, let's talk a little bit more about X-Men. So, did you watch the cartoon in the 90s?
See, I had just gotten out of Saturday morning cartoons. I had joined the Navy and I was overseas, and the broadcasting overseas, because I'm a retired military journalist. So the way we did television and stuff was like about 2 years old.
Okay.
For the stuff that people were watching overseas in the military and their families. So it's like I leave here, I go over there. Like for instance, when I went to boot camp in 1995, Sliders had just come out.
Oh wow, I remember.
Like
Sliders.
literally, it
Jerry
premiered.
O'Connell, right?
Yes, it premiered, and then I went to boot camp. I go through boot camp, I go through school. A year later, I'm in Spain. Another year later, Sliders premieres overseas in Spain at my show.
Basically my life. I was in Spain.
Yeah, I got right back into it.
Lily over here lives in Spain, actually.
Oh, fantastic. Where at?
In the Canary Islands.
Okay, yeah, I was in Rota.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, for 2 years.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So we get movies late too, still.
Yeah, and again, that's when I used to watch a lot of HBO as a kid, and Showtime, and recorded a lot of movies. So when I got overseas, I was renting a lot of movies and then making copies of them, and and then it just became part of my collection.
That's incredible. Okay, well, why don't we play a little bit of the
Well, can I just ask a question?
Yes.
How do you choose the characters to cosplay?
For me, it's about both looking like the character, but also...
I was going to say, there's a striking resemblance.
Thank you.
Like...
But now it's not required. I mean, the thing, I tell people,
sure, but
if
I'm
you love a character, regardless of
phenomenally
what...
amazed.
Thank you. If you love a character, regardless of how much you look like them, you could be a different race, you could be a different height, you could be a different gender. If you love the character, cosplay them. And you don't need to have a lot of money. You could do it right out of your closet and just say you're
awesome.
Casual Iron Man.
I feel like there's like there's got to be, I mean, I don't cosplay, but I feel like just from witnessing it, there seems to be such high standards, and people can go really out
and
crazy,
they really can.
And maybe intimidates other
it does.
people.
I was really intimidated at first because I was going to conventions with a friend who was an artist, and I was helping him out at his table, and then finally another convention comes up. I says, hey, could I cosplay? He goes, sure. I was like, could I cosplay a woman? And he's like, I don't care. So I showed up as Zero Suit Samus, and I was worried because I'd bought it online. I bought the wig. I was worried that people were going to give me a hard time about, oh, you didn't make that yourself. You didn't design that. No, people loved it. I have several other cosplay friends. They don't make any of their own suits. They have they farm them out to people.
So it doesn't have to be.
No, I say that I'm a project manager. I come up with the idea, and I come up with little tweaks and such, but I farm it out to people who are much more talented than I am, and then I make it look good.
Because it's about the essence of it.
Yes, it's about enjoying who you are, enjoying the character. I may not have watched this Jean Grey on TV, but I identify with the strong, independent attitude of her. I also do Dark Phoenix.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Which is the other side of Jean Grey.
Which is the other side, and I'm working on Green Phoenix as well, and my tailor is.
Nice.
And I noticed over time I was doing a lot of strong, independent female characters. I'm not doing Mrs. Incredible. I do classic Elastigirl.
Right.
So she was like before she got married.
She was married.
Right.
Also, Catwoman, who's can be by herself. Samus Aran, who is the strong silent
man,
type.
that's the character from Metroid. Just saying.
Yeah.
You remember me playing that video game when we were little? Oh
yeah.
man.
Yeah, and it's like when I was looking through, what could I do? And then there was Samus, and I was like, in. I'm full out.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I went to like my first 5 conventions as Samus, and I got known as the tall Samus. And that was the other thing with the gender issue. People, they see me and they're just like, you look gorgeous.
Yeah, you do look amazing.
I don't think gender applies here.
It shouldn't. It really shouldn't.
It shouldn't, and I think that gorgeous is just gorgeous.
It was the beginning of my transgender journey for myself. I mean, I was 41 years old. I had just retired from the military.
Wow.
I was having trouble with my wife, but I was ready to explore that maybe there's more to me than just a tie and slacks. And I'd always kind of played with the idea of dressing up. And I said, I can go to a convention dressed as a woman and be accepted. And it worked. And it really helped me find my inner confidence as a woman. And now I'm actually gender fluid. So at work, I show up sometimes in a dress and sometimes in a tie. And I teach adult students. And I tell them, look, day one, I mix J Stilipek. Sometimes it's sir, sometimes it's ma'am. You should be able to tell the difference, and you can use whatever pronoun falls out of your face. You're not going to hurt my feelings.
Wow.
That is amazing.
That's incredible.
Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you. I'm really lucky working for the DoD, the Department of Defense, and that things haven't changed for us yet, like they've affected the military.
Right.
And people keep telling me, it says, what do you care about the military transgender ban? You may be transgender, but you're not in the military. I says, oh, I'm just retired military, pulling down a retired pension, and living and working on a military base, teaching military personnel. I have nothing to worry about. And they're kind of like, oh yeah, maybe we should look into that.
Right.
Wow.
So I'm just hoping we can get back to the way things were 2 years ago.
Fascinating.
Really quick.
Now, I think it's so interesting also that X-Men is part of your journey, because X-Men really is one of the things that as a little kid, I really put issues of tolerance and intolerance in my face. There was an X-Men comic that I got from David Rebo. Remember David Rebo? Mm-hmm. When I was probably 8 or 9 years old, maybe 10. I was probably a little bit older. Anyways, 10 or 11. Yeah. God Loves, Man Kills. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
No.
It's old 80s. It was like a single issue special, and it was very much harshly dealing with the whole notion of, I guess more so racism in the case of X-Men, but about how dangerous it can be when things get out of hand, and how much the X-Men and the tolerance associated with the X-Men and the mutants was an important message. And it's totally, as a little kid, it kind of flipped my paradigm of how I viewed X-Men as not just a bunch of cool characters with awesome powers, but actually this bigger, deeper thing.
And I didn't read them as a kid, but even just as a young adult watching the movies, not the newer ones that are prequels, but the one with Hugh Jackman, those ones. You know, they're the way that they're persecuted in the movies as a whole group.
Exactly.
But they're all individually super different, and they have enemies within themselves. But then there's an entire rest of the world that persecutes them, regardless of who they are and which team they're on.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is super important.
It's very important to promote that tolerance, and even though people are different, and I think X-Men takes it to an extreme, says yes, we're different, and we're more powerful than the average person, which scares people. And the thing is that I think that's still relevant today, because
that's
you've
really
got the LGBT community and all these people who are finally stepping up and standing out. And I say, stand up, stand out, stand together. And you do that, and now all the white heterosexual males are like, wait, you're taking away our power. Subconsciously, they get upset because they suddenly realize they're not the center of attention anymore. And as a white, formerly heterosexual male, I understand that privilege that I had. It was an invisible privilege. Basically, no one was ever fired from their job for being a white male.
Right.
A straight white male.
Right.
You know, so it's like if they're I'm a straight white male and I was fired. Were you incompetent? Well, yeah. Then it's the same. That's what's different there.
Fascinating. Well, Jay, thank you so much for being here with us.
So much.
Jazmine Cosplays.
Phenomenal.
Check Jay out at JAZRAE22 on Twitter and Instagram and
Facebook.
We can't wait to keep following you, and thank you so much for being part of the Friday Night Movie family.
Thank you so much. I look forward to getting involved in the future.
Yay.
Here we are, Friday Night Movie Podcast exhibit booth with Jancel, who is a fitness guru.
Thanks.
Who owns the Crowbar Gym.
Correct.
In Leesburg, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, but first we're going to talk some pop culture, because we're here at the pop culture celebration of All-Star Comic-Con.
Cool.
Jancel, I want you to pick a card from the Friday Night Movie home game.
This one right here?
Yeah, and then we're going to talk about, so it says top 3. That's stuck to your head. That's amazing. That's very athletic. So top 3.
Yes.
Top 3 jacked actors. So actors who, like, their physical fitness impresses even someone like you.
Wesley Snipes, I think he Blade. He did great.
Oh
there.
yeah, Wesley Snipes and Blade. Awesome.
Yeah,
Old school.
Do you know that guy who did Ty Bo? He was in a movie. I forget his name. Billy something.
Billy.
Oh my God.
Billy Blanks?
Billy
Blanks. Okay,
Exactly.
Billy Blanks.
Billy Blanks. I'm going to say it. I mean, I really like Van Damme. He's coming back a long way, you know what I'm saying? I mean, he did get into a fight with his bodyguard, who was a Hell's Angel.
Okay, there you go.
I'm not sure if you remember that.
I just remember a lot of things about Van Damme when he kind of came off.
I think he was doing. I think he was up in the clouds a little bit.
Exactly.
Billy Blanks was in the last Boy Scout.
Now, if you are a Van Damme fan, can we talk a little Van Damme movies?
I loved him from the beginning, and then after that, when he kind of his decline. But I like him now again.
You don't have to go past Time Cop.
Okay,
all right?
cool.
If you don't want to.
Okay.
And Lily loves Time Cop.
Bloodsport. You put him on the map, I think.
Yeah.
For me.
So let's take the next card, and we're going to talk Van Damme.
Okay.
All right. Ooh, oh, you lost a card there. MVP. All right. So Van Damme villains.
Wow.
Who is your MVP?
Van Damme.
You don't have to know the name.
Or MVV, most valuable villain.
Of all the villains he's fought, who has been the one?
Well, he did that. Well, technically it wasn't Bloodsport. I don't think that was Bolo Young, right? Was his name? That was the bad guy. But he wasn't. He was a good bad guy, but I don't really think he was a bad guy to me. When he did that kickboxing movie, that kickboxer, I forget the guy's name.
Okay, I don't know.
But he was awesome, and that's a bad guy.
Okay, that's amazing.
He puts Ambach to shame.
Okay.
You know Ambach. Ambach the Fly Warrior.
Oh yeah, that's a great.
That
movie.
brought it. You know, those guys they took one for the team, bro. Blacklisted probably.
Really?
Just like Jackie Chan. Yeah, they're getting hit in the face, man.
Oh.
One was wearing a helmet with a fro.
Yeah,
and he got hit right in the head.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's amazing. Now, do you see the Raid movies, Raid Redemption?
Yeah, I have seen them. Yeah.
Those are two of my favorite movies.
I think it's made by the same producer or something. That's people that work the same way. So it's definitely down my alley. I think that was really good.
Okay.
Took it to a whole new level.
All right, that's incredible. Okay, now If you had to train
Yes.
a particular person, we're going to segue into talking about your incredible training method here. Which actor would you want to train? And
Steven Seagal.
Steven Seagal.
I would, because because I think he has a very opinionated. He's very challenging, probably to work with. He's up in, he thinks he probably knows a lot, and he does. Don't get me wrong, he does know a lot. But he could definitely, honestly, do better with his physical stature.
Oh, that's amazing.
And then, and you can. And a lot of people make fun of him running. You know what I'm saying? So that's cool. I have no problem with him running. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. But I think a lot of it, he can do a comeback if he just got into shape. Remember, he did an American movie, got back into shape.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And my system's so easy, man. It's
all right,
honestly,
so tell us about the system. Let's go.
So all you have to do is come twice a week, then do it's perfect for athletes. So he can just keep doing his martial arts. But at the end of the day, it's a balance between technically hormones and so with ARX, pretty much what you're doing is you're doing high intensity training. So it's a lot of time on the load. You do your whole body. Do it once or twice a week. Most people can do first time when they do it twice a week is better. Once a week, once you get more accustomed to it, you put on a lot of muscle. Your body just like a big furnace, and then after that, boom, you're set. You just have, and then you eat carbs.
That's amazing.
And if you eat carbs,
So like pizza?
you can have pizza, but you have to make it a certain way.
Oh, okay.
So I'm saying, so a
I'm
lot
sure
of it you're
there's
taking.
some rules.
So at the end of the day, you're taking technically the saturated fat out of the deal.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying? So like for example, milk is bad. Okay.
Okay.
Talk to Dr. McDougall. He's big time. He's a big. I'm not sure if you ever heard of that guy.
No, but I'm pretty sure
I'll
I've
get
heard
into it
before
another day.
that milk is bad.
Yeah, milk is bad. Exactly. A lot of saturated fat is bad. So, but at the end of the day, you're not going to go hungry. Most people fail their diet because at the end of the day, they're on calorie restriction. I tell people eat more.
Okay.
No, I'm not joking.
That's
Eat
incredible.
more. Eat more potatoes. Eat more rice. Eat more real food.
Ooh, I like potatoes.
Yeah, exactly. You can even air fry them, brother.
Her husband. Oh, you can air fry. I wanted an air fryer.
Hell yeah, dude. You don't have to use oil.
Allie,
you
we're
air fry
getting
it.
an air fryer.
Like,
Oh, we're gonna have another guest in a
But
second.
instead of lifting weights, I used an electric motor and an algorithm, so you see everything you put out on the screen. So when you look at this thing right here, this has a screen on it, and you can see that little screen right there. It shows you exactly how much you're lifting, your negative and your positives, and how hard you're pushing.
That's incredible. So this is at the Crowbar Gym
This is at the
in Leesburg.
With
With Hansel. Look him up.
Yep.
Get jacked like
Yep.
Wesley Snipes. And if you're Steven Seagal, I know you're listening.
I know you are.
Go find Hansel
waiting
at the
for you,
Crowbar
bro.
Gym. Take care, man. Thank you so much for being here.
So much.
This has been another episode of the Friday Night Movie Podcast. You can follow all of the Friday Night Movie shenanigans at Fry Night Movie on Twitter and Instagram, or FridayNightMoviePod.com. You can follow Lily at Chichi K Gomez. That's ChiChiK Gomez on Twitter. You can follow Becky at Paper BK Princess on Twitter. You can follow me at Pancake4Table. That's Pancake, the number 4, and Table on Twitter and Instagram. And our theme music is by What Does It Eat? Thanks as always for listening.
It's Hagar.
It's Hagar. Okay.
You know,
if you're Norse,
it's Norse. You actually, it's pronounced a little differently. You actually wouldn't pronounce the last R, so it'd be Hagar.
Hagar.
Yeah.
Hagar.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So it's and he doesn't, or the cartoon was funny. I just didn't like the fact that he had horned helmets. You know,
because they didn't really have horned helmets?
They drank from them. They didn't wear them. You know.
They drank from horns or drank from horned helmets?
Drank from horns.
Oh,
and
right.
didn't have.
But
Yeah.
they didn't have horned helmets.
No.
No kidding.
So you turn your head on a boat, you're gonna be poking out your shipmate.
That's totally true. Okay, we're gonna get started. We're gonna just talk. We're gonna talk Vikings.